Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Karen A. Oliver. Now we're going to be discussing her impressive book, Ben's Story, Living with Friedreich's Ataxia. It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's a lot of other places, man. Type it into a search bar, sit back and be greeted with all of the locations. And once we begin talking about the book, you're going to realize why it's going to be a good idea for you to do that. Now, before I go any further, I want to quickly point out the fact that Karen was brought to us by Citi of Books. So for my writers out there listening in who have gone through their process and now you need some assistance moving the masterpiece you just worked so tirelessly to create. Head on over to cityofbooks.com and gather all of the ways that their fantastic team is more than equipped to help you do just that. People, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Karen here on the line. Man, let me ask you a question. What do you do when the world gives you an expiration date? Now, it's an interesting question, right? And when my marketing team pulled that question and provided it, it really had me and it had all of us pondering. It had all of us talking because, listen, first of all, life, it just comes with an expiration date, right? I mean, there's no avoiding it. Death is inevitable. Well, at least as of right now. I don't know. We'll see how technology continues to advance because at a certain point, that may not be the case. But at least as of right now, yeah, you can bank on that. We all technically have an expiration date, although many of us don't know when that date is. Most of us faced with that realization, we would probably slow down. Well, not Karen's son, Ben, okay? He decided to jump out of airplanes, okay, amongst a lot of things. And today we are sitting down with her to hear the story of a boy who was told he'd be gone by 34, but who packed so much living into his 49 years that he truly redefined what it means to be alive. This is the story of a quiet rebel in a wheelchair who refused to let a diagnosis write his final chapter. This is going to be one that you are absolutely going to want to add to your shelf, and trust and believe we're only going to scratch the surface here today. By the time we've concluded, I promise you, man, I'm going to make good on what I said. You're going to run and purchase your copies. Let's get it started. Karen, first and foremost, welcome to the network, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, listen, Karen, it's a pleasure to have you here. I think the book is incredible. Your son and the life that he chose to live is awe-inspiring. It really is something that I think, what a beautiful way to pay homage, but also to inspire a world of people that are told one thing, and unfortunately, so often we buckle under that title, whatever that title may be, right? There's so much nuance to this, but it's going to be able to assist a lot of people. So we're looking forward to the discussion. And again, it really is an honor to have you here to discuss it. Let's jump right in, okay? This is all about your son's incredible story. So it only feels right to start there. Tell us more about your book, Ben's Story.
Well, it's, like you've already said, when he was diagnosed with Friedreich's ataxia, he was 11 years old. And I was told, you're a nurse, you'll understand this. He'll be in a wheelchair at 17 and dead at 34. And that's pretty much exactly how I was told by this physician. I went into denial eventually. There's nothing wrong with my baby boy. And then, I did some research, found out that Friedreich's ataxia fell under the muscular dystrophy umbrella. So we found the muscular dystrophy physician, and when I took him to them, this was probably 6 or 8 months later, because I just refused to believe anything was wrong with him.
Yeah.
The Friedreich's ataxia physician looked at me and said, he's going to live a normal life. She said he might very well be disabled, and he might have diabetes, he might get, heart disease. But if he wants to go to school, if he wants to drive a car, that's his decision. And he said he can live a normal life. And I think that's what changed my mind, but I know it changed his mind because he determined then, I'm not gonna sit in this wheelchair if I ever get there, and I'm gonna do what I want to do. And that's exactly what he did. Like I said, he was in a wheelchair at 17, but at 34 he was very healthy. He was getting to a point where he needed to come home because he lived by himself in South Dakota for 15 years. But he decided, when he was 34, he still had a lot of life left.
Yeah.
And he continued to live that life.
Karen, thank you very much for that. Listen, my follow-up question that I want to go, and I think it's safe to assume, but you know what happens when you do that, right? So, I'm not gonna. Mm-hmm. I want to know, listen, this is a journey that is deeply personal to you. But honestly, we're grateful that you've created it because it's going to be wonderfully inspirational, educational for so many others. So my question now to you, when you were writing this book, I mean, it could have stayed on your personal shelf. You didn't have to put it out for others to be able to pick up on it. Why did you do that? What made you compelled to publish the book for the world?
Friedreich's ataxia was not very well known, and it still isn't throughout even the world. In fact, when he was first diagnosed, a lot of even family physicians had never heard of it. So I wanted people who had learned about it to, if I could inspire one person to realize that they didn't just have to sit in a wheelchair for the rest of their life, that they could have a meaningful life, which he did have. He did what he wanted to do, and he would have done more. I mean, when he knew that he was dying, he told me, he said, I haven't done everything I want to do yet. And that he just, in the book will tell how much he did do. Made me a nervous wreck. But yes, I thought if I could help one person feel like they could do more than what they were told they could do, then that would be my objective.
And that's really where I wanted to get. And I think that's a great segue because your book hinges on so much. And I mentioned at the top, there's nuance to this. This is, of course, Ben's direct story and his journey with Friedreich's ataxia. But like you just mentioned, get rid of that particular diagnosis and you can copy and paste anything there. Because the notion here is taking advantage of, taking control of your life, taking control of the decisions that you are making. Now, I get it. A lot easier said than done, and the circumstances vary based upon the individual. But that's where I wanted to go next. I'm curious to know, Karen, when you were writing this book, I'm sure in the moment, like you mentioned, moments of denial, and that was a journey and a process for you as well. But while you were writing the book, I'm curious, did you come to see the diagnosis that he was given as almost a strange kind of unexpected gift? Now, again, it's a weird terminology, but follow me. It was almost, as I see it, right, like a catalyst that forced Ben to live with an urgency and an intentionality that we oftentimes don't, right? So many people take life and time for granted. And we push things off to tomorrow that we could very easily do today. So talk to us about that juxtaposition. And did that reframing happen for you while you were writing the book, potentially?
I think it did. And like you said, I can't really explain it, but I know that with Ben, he made up his mind he was going to do things, and he did it right away. He didn't put it off. And, much against my will a lot of the times. I mean, he made me very nervous. But when I was writing the book, I realized that in a very short period of time, he did more in his lifetime than people who are twice his age ever did. And they were all his decisions, and he did what he wanted to do. And some people told him, no, you cannot do that. And he said, oh yeah, I can. And he did.
People, listen, man, you got to purchase your copies. Again, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. The book is entitled Ben's Story, Living with Friedreich's Ataxia by Karen A. Oliver. Head on over there, purchase this incredible book today, and allow it not only to take you on this journey, but allow it to inspire you. Allow it to challenge you. Again, whether you are someone that finds yourself living with a diagnosis, living with any type of disability, that's all irrelevant. We all have our moments, man, where we're just, again, like I mentioned, we'll procrastinate on things. We'll push certain things off regardless of a particular diagnosis. Allow this book to be your eye-opening experience, right? To really challenge yourself to live life to the fullest today rather than waiting until tomorrow. Karen, you've mentioned a number of times the fear that you experienced while Ben was going through and doing all sorts of things, right? And listen, as a parent, oh my goodness. Now, my children are very young, right? My daughter is 2, my son is 1. So we still have a whole lot of fear already that we're going through. But our fear now is like they're climbing over furniture and, they're pushing each other. They're not sharing. As a parent, that's kind of life now, right? It's this just 24-hour, just nonstop fear cycle. Well, I'm curious to know, like, you watched Ben do things, like you mentioned, that most quote unquote able-bodied people wouldn't even dare. Well, can you describe a specific moment when your overwhelming fear that you may have had for his safety in the moment was instantly replaced by an overwhelming pride in his spirit?
Well, I can think of a couple. The one is when he jumped out of the airplane.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he had asked my husband and I to drive him over to Zephyr Hills and he could jump out of an airplane. And mind you, he'd already asked the doctor, could I jump out of an airplane because he had rods in his back? And they said, absolutely not. And he thought, well, I'm going to anyway. But we told him no, we wouldn't drive him over there. He got over there and the young lady who took him left him there. So, of course, he had to call us to come pick him up. When we got there, I saw the wheelchair, but no Ben. And the man at Zephyr Hills said, just look up there. I think that's him coming down now. And sure enough, he did a tandem jump, but he came down and landed, and it was like, wow, he really did it, and I didn't have to have a heart attack. And I mean, I thought I was going to have a heart attack before I got to the Zephyr Hills. So that was one, and he actually jumped out of airplanes twice. The other one was when I put him on a bus to go to Southern California by himself. He was going to see the Grateful Dead. So he took a bus across the country and ended up in San Francisco first, and he traveled throughout. Now, granted, he called me every couple of days, so at least that made me feel better. But I think I cried all the way home from the bus stop when I put him on the bus. So.
Oh my goodness! Like I said, my wife and I were very new to this experience, but stories like this it has my mind racing in terms of what our children are going to get into and do later on in their journey. But we're looking forward to facing it head on. Karen, one of my closing question now for you. And listen, there are a lot of options here that I can choose from because this is such a magnificent story that we could stay here, we could talk for hours. But we've offered advice already to listening audience members, to readers. I'm curious to know if you had an opportunity to go back in time and you could go back to the day of Ben's diagnosis, knowing everything that you know now. 2-part question here. What would you tell the 14-year-old Ben? And then 2, what would you tell yourself at that time?
That's a tough one. I don't know that I probably would hesitate to tell him anything at first, which I didn't know what to tell him. I was not with his father at the time, and I had to kind of talk around that and tell him, we're going to see somebody else. We're not going to accept that. And I probably wouldn't do it a whole lot differently now, minus the negative people that were around, other people that were around him, because I tried to stay positive. I tried to keep him as independent as possible for as long as possible until we saw another doctor so we could really determine. I mean, he rode his bicycle. From the time he was 14 and he had his first back surgery, he was still riding a bicycle. He was still walking to school. I was accused of abuse because I made him walk to school, but I really don't think I would do anything differently. I think I would probably still be in denial. I probably learned a lot faster, a little bit more about Friedreich's. I probably would have gotten him into muscular dystrophy and Shriners a little bit faster. But I think I did. Ben's stepfather was very involved. In fact, he was the dad, and he really was the one who helped so much. And I don't know that we would have done anything differently.
Karen, thank you very much for all of it. People, listen, I'm going to say it one last time, man. Remember, Amazon, Barnes & Noble are the places you got to go. The book is entitled Ben's Story, Living with Friedreich's Ataxia by Karen A. Oliver. Pick up your copies today, man. And as I was listening to Karen speak, throughout this entirety of the interview, it's like I'm reminded that, Ben's life wasn't about the years that he lived, but the life in those years. And I think that's such an important distinction, and something that I've mentioned it earlier in this interview. I mentioned it a number of times. Like, we oftentimes take things for granted. And I get it. Like, I'm not casting any aspersions. I understand. I am guilty of this constantly. It's difficult to stay present sometimes. It's difficult to not procrastinate and not take things for granted. And that is why books like this, they're so important. Because as Karen reminded us, honestly, like, the greatest defiance isn't anger. It's choosing joy when the world expects you to give up. And can we just stop and analyze that sentence? Again, something that is taken from this book, but can be manipulated and used in so many different ways. When we look at where we currently are as a society, as a world, there's a lot of people choosing anger right now, man. There's not enough people choosing joy. And I think we can learn from that. If you take one thing away from Ben's story, let it be the courage to look at your own limitations and ask yourself, what adventure am I still capable of? It might have you looking at things just a little bit differently. And we hope that this episode inspires you to find your own parachute. Maybe not jump out of planes, if that's what you choose to do. I like that too. That works. Karen, listen, this has been an absolute honor. I really do mean that. Such a gratifying conversation. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you so very much. It was excellent.